Councilmember Du Bois. Here. Vice Mayor Niss. Councilmember Koo. Here. Chair Wolbach. Here. 3 present.
Okay, so for oral communications, do we have any speakers? It looks like not. So should we move on to our one and only action item of the day, which is discussion of the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline? Harriet, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Harriet Richardson, City Auditor. So I'm here to discuss the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline protocols. And you have in front of you a copy of the current protocols and a copy of the proposed changes in track changes, and then an App Places memo to change one title of this title of Section 9 from discipline to corrective action. We changed the language in the paragraph, but then didn't change the title. So that's everything you have in front of you, plus the PowerPoint that I'll be going through. So I went through the protocols. I made some edits. I coordinated with the city attorney's office and the city manager's office on these changes. So I think we're in good shape for the direction we're headed with them. For a little bit of background, the council adopted the current hotline administration policy along with the permanent hotline project in May 2013 after a 10-month pilot period. So we have a third-party vendor that we contract with that administers our hotline, Navix Global. It's available to employees only. External parties can't use it. And it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The original pilot program was based on an audit that was done by one of my predecessors back in 2008 on City of Palo Alto employee ethics policies. That resulted in both the hotline pilot project, subsequently the permanent placement of the hotline, and also the city manager's office developing an employee ethics policy, which all employees got training on last year. So when callers when someone wants to make a call to the hotline, they have the option of calling in anonymously, or they can provide their name. Most people do prefer to call in anonymously, but we have had some people provide their name. When a call comes in, it goes to the third-party administrator. Then they take the information about the call from the employee, what their complaint is. They try to get as much information about the issue as they can. And then it goes into a case management system, and then we get an email letting us know that there's a new case. And so then we can go log into the system and look at the case. And then we have a hotline review committee, which consists of me, the city manager, and the city attorney. The 3 of us get together when a new case comes in. We look at the case and decide, first of all, does it meet the does the description fall under the definition of fraud, waste, and abuse? If it does, is there enough information to investigate it? And then we would make a decision to investigate. If it doesn't fall within the, here's Liz, I'll wait a second before I continue. If it doesn't fall within the definition of fraud, waste, and abuse, we would decide either that to send a response doesn't fit within the protocols of the hotline, or we might refer it out to a department for review and action, which we've done in some cases. We don't ask for a response back in those cases, but if it's investigated, then we would go through the process of investigating and reporting what the outcome was, either substantiated or not substantiated. So since the hotline's inception in 2012, there's been 34 calls received. 6 of those were received during the pilot period. So what are the primary reasons we wanted to propose some changes? The main reason is that there's been a lack of clarity among employees about what the purpose of the hotline is. So the majority of the calls that we receive don't actually relate to fraud, waste, or abuse. A lot of them are just general disagreement with the management decision, or something that we might classify as a personnel issue, or they just don't fit within the definition of fraud, waste, and abuse. Several of those calls, of those 34 calls that we received, were actually multiple versions of single issues. So we received 11 calls regarding one issue and 2 calls regarding another issue. That narrowed it down to 23 actual issues. 14 of those were investigated, but only 2 of those were substantiated. The other reason we wanted to revisit the protocols is we had previously, when we had something we want investigated, we would send it out to the departments and say, please look into this and send us back the outcome. We would give them access to the case management system just for that case, but what they were doing was they would put information in, not substantiated, closed, and we didn't get enough information to really know what they had done to investigate the case and whether it really should have been closed. My office is responsible for reporting on the outcomes of the cases, and I wasn't feeling comfortable that I could report and support that it really should have been closed. So moving forward, that's one of the things that I'm addressing in some of the changes. But before I decided what to look at actually changing, I did a survey of other jurisdictions around the country, and actually Canada too, about how they use their hotlines. It is common for the hotlines to be placed in the auditor's office. And so I actually received a few responses. 39 jurisdictions responded, and from those I was able to identify a lot of common themes about what they do to inform employees about their hotlines. Actually, 35 of those 39 employees allow calls from outside their employee base also. So residents can call in, contractors can call in. So most of the jurisdictions have expanded it beyond just employees. So some of the things that I identified, most of them do some sort of education of their employees to inform them what the hotline is and how to use it. The most common things are that they provide information at their new employee orientations. Several of them create posters that they hang around facilities that have information about what fits within the hotline, and they update those posters at least annually to just kind of refresh employees' view of what they're seeing, and just a little reminder. Some of them create and distribute brochures or little wallet cards. This is an example of a little wallet card that you might see some jurisdictions prepare. And then some of them put information on employee pay stubs, just a little notice on there about what the hotline is, and call if they see fraud, waste, or abuse. They might do that generally 2 times a year. And some jurisdictions actually have a mandatory annual training or presentation that they do. Some do online training where they have a training video that people can log into their system, and then they can actually see that, and that they're required to look at that periodically so that they can be refreshed about what the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline is. Other jurisdictions provide information in all employee emails. And several jurisdictions have dedicated intranet or intranet pages. And some of the common things I saw when actually looking at those are sections with frequently asked questions, so that employees can go in and see, what's the definition of fraud, waste, and abuse? What types of things do we investigate? What types of things don't we investigate? How do we handle a complaint once we receive it? So a lot of common information that people would have questions about to help them understand what the purpose of the hotline is and what happens to their complaint once it's received. They